Sorry, I'm still laughing at what happened this weekend. Okay. Still stupid week on Toqger. Yeah, it really shouldn't surprise me at this point. It's revolving around a kid who can't see the... Well, I guess not exactly revolving, as the pacing of the show has not been the greatest, but it's a side plot, I guess, about a kid who can't see the Russia. And reason cited is he no longer has imagination because he doesn't believe in himself because he lost a baseball game. Now, the reason this is stupid is losing faith in yourself and being a creative personality are not the same thing, and yet the show treats it as that. As once Toqger, as he's taking focus this week, shows him that he can still believe in himself after failing, it gets him to see the trains again. And it's really... Beginning to Toqger, I went on this tangent about adults not seeing the Russia because they don't have imagination, but it's more a thing of believing in the impossible, giving it a chance, that they seem to be misciting as imagination, and that gels with this episode and how imagination is treated. Imagination and belief are not the same thing. You know, they did this with Mystic Force 2, that I remember, in that there's knowing something, then there's believing in it, and it made for very stupid things. And the more I see of Yasuko Kobayashi's recent works, I'm wondering how much of an American influence has infested her style. But that's neither here nor there. Toqger gets involved, comes across this kid because he's doing a marathon between train stops, like he ended up doing on accident several episodes ago. Yeah, he's learned nothing. Granted, he doesn't lose his pass this time, but you work up to a marathon. A marathon is the end goal of constant training, especially since at the end of the episode he learned his lesson and is training on the ship. Trains. Why did I say ship? He's still an idiot. I really wish the protagonists were not idiots. I count Hikari half the time, even though he's not an idiot, because he just goes with the flow instead of, taking charge or pointing out when they're being morons. I really want him to do that, and he's not. Anyways, Monster of the Week is Typewriter Shadow, which the show calls Type Shadow, and I'm gonna say Typewriter Shadow, even though it's longer, because Type Shadow just makes me think of that it's a new alien from the Type Zero, the Fate Stay Night continuity. Type Moon, that's what I meant. And yeah, whatever it writes out on the keys over its body become what happens. As in, it writes titles, it writes that the rainbow line will leave, it goes out into space and away from the team. And it writes out, Toqger will die at dusk, so he has to figure out a way to do it, and the way he does it, I actually think is clever. He visualizes the monster and all the typewriter keys across it, so since the monster presses the keys to create its magic spells, he figures out a pattern he can use in combat to press all the keys that will create an effect that negates the monster's thing. And I really liked that. Except he never saw all the keys on its position, and it was really far away from him. So even if he imagines it, he doesn't have a good mental picture of what the monster looked like, so it was easy to get keys wrong. Now, that's easily reconciled in battle because he just needed to get he needed to get an idea of the pattern down before he went into battle, and methodology of attacking it, so he would do it. So it's not completely wrong or bad, it's just that it's stretching my suspension of disbelief. Team up with the giant mechs this week, Tokati driving one, so it's not just going to be Wright driving the Dieselo when they're splitting up to combat things, which I liked. I don't like it when support mechs with no designated user end up getting usurped by the red. I mean, some would make sense if they're specifically designed for them, like the red Battlezord, but there are others that just get dominated, and granted, the red is the main character, the main hero of the group, but it's nice to see some variety in this stuff, and not have him dominate the entire time, which has been a recurring problem with a lot of series, not just recent ones. They did it with Go-Onger, I already cited Zeo and O-Ranger. Magi Ranger was another big one that memory serves. It subverted an Abba Ranger as the secondary mechs got shuffled a lot. I'm going on a tangent. So, not as bad as it could have been, but the setup and the subplot with the kid were just plain bad. On to Gaim. Yeah, I'm getting to it fast this week. Gaim was awesome! We find out more about Takatora, Bata, and Ryoma's thing, and we learn that Ryoma's known about the Overlords for a long time. Like, a long time. Before the belts even went into production types. The ones that were first given out to the kids. So, Takatora has been working from a flawed plan for a long time. If he had known about the Overlords, he probably would not have gone to the extremes we have. It works well for mediating his I am evil side, because, yeah, I've stated him as a villainous character, ends justify the means type. This explains more why Ryoma is journeying to the side of the big bad, or at least the full split of the sides that's coming soon. As we see Takatora's first testing of the belt and how badly it goes, and Ryoma reminiscing on it. Speaking of which, my thing last week about how Foundation X could have been a backer to Yggdrasil, I was right! In a scene where Ryoma's going over his previous belts, at the bottom of a screen, you can see a listing of cards, memories, coins, cosmic switches, rings, fusels, all the things the last 5 or 6 riders have used at the bottom of the screen. And we know from at least Foundation X's point that they've been around since at least the Memories point for research purposes. They could have also gotten stuff about Decade when he crossed over with Double and the fusion of worlds happened, that it could have retconned them in. They might have, for all we know, and I believe I suppositioned way back in the Shin review that since they're a research group, they could be backing any number of these things and be a legitimate background threat, and as I said, actually have been working to evolve humanity so they would be safe. It's certainly a possibility. Or, from the Kamen Rider Legend stuff, Ryoma could have gotten, other research notes from stuff people have been testing, because we know that they've been doing this research for at least 10 years, and that's almost half of the Heisei writers right there that can be retconned in at the beginning of that. Sort of. It's at least acknowledging the fused continuity that hasn't really been acknowledged that much, and, fits with that warring writers theme that this show has had. It's a it's a moment you miss it easily, but someone screenshotted it and put it up on DeviantArt. Just search Kamen Rider and go back, I think about a week at this point. It's in my favorites for the for my DeviantArt favorites, so it's not that off. Anyways, Michi was going to outright kill Kota. It wasn't just shooting him in the back. He was, beginning of the episode, he cocked the gun and was going to shoot him in the back. Kaito saves him. Yeah, he has... This is continuity. From one of the first episodes, one of his teammates used a slingshot to knock one of the lock seeds out of the hands of the battlers, so it became an unfair fight, and hasn't given an advantage. Thing is, Kaito doesn't believe in unfair fights. I'm phrasing it right. He doesn't believe it's showing how strong you are if you cheat, if you shoot someone in the back, if you give it an unfair advantage that you haven't earned. And he's an ass, not denying that. He's antagonistic. He's not the best of people, but he acknowledges Kota's strength. He has since the beginning. He doesn't agree with his ideals, but he respects them. And that is a perfect foil for the secondary rider position. And he saves Kota's life because he respects him. He doesn't agree with Kota's viewpoint of talking over showing the strength, but he respects him. And this is how much of a villain Michi is now, is he doesn't even understand things like this now. He doesn't understand other points of view. He's not going to argue with them. He's just going to smile and then backstab. And he has a scene with Mai in the episode where Mai cites how out of character Michi has been acting lately, and he has this creepy line where he asks Mai how she wants him to act, and it just set off all the warning bells, because we've known this for a while, that he's duplicitous, but not that he will... I'm trying to cite... Yeah, that's a good one. He's become light Yagami. That's interesting, because I was thinking, wow, this is a bit like Death Note, isn't it? In the Toqger episode with typewriter Shadow writing down Tokadi will die at dusk. That was also a plot point from that episode. That really wasn't relevant because it got taken care of ridiculously easy. But yeah, he's become effectively light Yagami at this point. Planning how to kill or betray or dominate while putting a smile on his face. Now I know a lot of serial killers, psychopaths, sociopaths in media do this. It's weird to see it with a Kamen Rider series, because it's something I haven't seen. It's probably happened in the Heisei shows. I haven't gone through all the Heisei shows just quite yet, but there was this funny thing. I follow Kamen Rider texters, and the person who runs that Tumblr did something with Michi and Kusaka from Fies, where Michi's getting advice from the more violent secondary writers about dealing with Kota, and in the bits, Kusaka just says, "Kill him." And Michi comes back and said, "Okay, I did it. Now what?" And Kusaka's like, "Oh crap, I never got that far. Did you check that he was dead?" And Michi's like, "Oh crap." And that was funny. And I'm bringing it up because, well, if you do Tumblr stuff, that's one you should watch, Kamen Rider Texters. They do a lot of good stuff. They actually took one of my suggestions a while back. So, moving on. Kota comes across Oren, who got trapped in the forest because the crack a few episodes ago, and here's the interesting thing. Oren is ridiculously hungry. Because he's been lost there and he doesn't know about the fruit. So he's tempted to eat one. And first I'm thinking Kota's going to stop him and save his life. But no, Oren, as I kept saying, is the wild card. He does what you don't expect him to do. So he's tempted to eat it, and then he stops it because he knows not to from his field training to not eat things you don't know the results of. And so Kota doesn't even need to tell him about the dangers of the fruit to know he shouldn't do it. So, oh, wonderful thing right before it. There was this theory about the belts, that they retard the need to eat when they're in use, and as they were a built-in thing about Ryoma's. And we got a bunch of fridge horror from that due to past events where the armored riders have some type of food in front of them, and they're not eating. Now, some of that would be it's the staging, but the big point of this was back when Takatoru was recruiting Oren to his side, and he wasn't eating the cake in front of him, at least not finishing it. And to a personality like Oren, that would seem like an insult. So Takatoru would have been motivated to finish eating it, even if he doesn't have the impulse to eat. And here's the big thing about this. Hase. If the belts remove the need to eat by providing a second sustenance source, and they've been subsisting on that for so long, using the belts so they don't need to eat, what happens when the belts are destroyed? It's this fan theory that's been going around lately since Ryoma's revelation about the belts that Hase wasn't tempted to eat the Helheim fruit because of the hypnotic draw it has. He was going into hypoglycemic shock and literally needed to eat. Adds a little level of more horror to that moment, doesn't it? And it's validated in this episode by Kota just grabbing Helheim fruit and turning it into lock seeds, and then just jacking them in so he can keep moving. Realizing that he bought a bunch of food since he was going to be searching for overlords, and he didn't need to bring it. And this is also a good thing, because then he could give it to Oren, so he could no longer be ridiculously hungry. That, or he could show him the trick with the belts and the sustenance. Either one, really. Anyways, they come across... Demushu, the Red Overlord, is really angry about Kaito. In fact, he's recovered, he's attacking all the humans just to get back to Kaito. Now, normally this would be a bad thing, but remember, this is Kota that caused their fight to be interrupted, so this is an obvious consequence of that, which... oops. But the thing that this is a good thing for is he attacks the Yggdrasil officers, the researchers, so now Takatoru knows about the overlords, as in he has legitimate evidence of them talking, and Kota and Oren back him up. Oren defending the people as they get through the Yggdrasil crack, and Takatoru and Kota fighting Demushu, and Takatoru's learning all this stuff that Ryoma has actively kept from him. Now, I did this a couple weeks ago with the Gaim Toqger crossover, that Takatoru is not this stupid. He's just expecting all the information he has is right, and he trusts people to not keep secrets from him. It's a fact of trust, not of ignorance. And not of, what's the phrase? He's not oblivious to it, he trusts the people around him to tell him what he needs to know. And that's why I still find that Tokuo scene to be so insulting. But this really shows that he's not as villainous as... Okay, I shouldn't say villainous. He's a complex character that was doing bad things because he felt he had no other choice, and now he's fully on the side of Kota's thinking that if they can negotiate with the overlords, if they can subdue them, they might have a chance of just warding off the invasion from the outset. He won't need to kill 6 billion people or more because they couldn't get the belts working to make the populace survive. And that is a really good moment for him. Of course, it's ruined because Ryoma sends in Sid, and he's completing the orders Takatora gave way back that were never rescinded about getting rid of Kota's interference, so yeah, we're expecting a divide of the Energy Riders very soon. And lines are going to be drawn, and Ryoma's got an ace in the hole. We know that for next week. Also, we get sights that there is a white overlord. Now, from Demushu and his green buddy, we can expect that they align to the 3 or 4 types of invest we've seen already. Red, blue, and green being the mainstays, so there's probably a blue overlord invest out there, but this one was white. We don't know what his deal is. We don't know if it's DJ Sagara or if Sagara is just a trickster. We don't know what Sagara is anymore, do we? But it causes Demushu to retreat in pain, in a lot of pain, and things are getting more complex as things move forward, I guess. I'm blanking on the words I want to use to properly describe this. Go figure, it's me. On to Garo. Okay, if you're not watching this show, watch this episode. I don't care if you watch any other episode, watch this one. It is a tribute to horror movies, of the likes of Romero to whoever did the Rage Virus to all types. Scream, Freddy Krueger, what's his name? Leatherface, and what's the guy from Halloween? You know, the serial killer from... I am blanking on that name. Why am I blanking on that name? Oh, right, because I don't watch these movies. It's a tribute to every normal Western horror movie, and it is fantastic. It's a bit tongue-in-cheek because it's based off of tongue-in-cheek horror movies, B-movies, and it's really fun. It's especially as it's the take on these American, British, Western movies from the Eastern Japanese perspective, and it's really well executed. And wow, most of my show is an American's take on a Japanese series, where I don't really go over I don't go over a lot of the Japanese influence, because you should be able to know and understand a lot of it without needing to go very in-depth. I mean, I do it for the Onimusha reviews because that's mainly history, but a show should be able to stand or fall on its own, despite these things. But I really like this, as we've seen horror parody the scary movies. The scary movies were terrible, but this does it better, and it does it appropriately, because this is a horror-themed show. They're fighting monsters that feed off of fear, and horror movie franchises feed off of people's fear to entertain them. So I thought that was a perfect fit and very appropriate. And yeah, the horror monster of this week infests a man who operates a old-style movie theater called Movie Showa, as in shows movies from the Showa era, which is up to 1989. Movies older than 1989, which... thing you need to know about the movie theaters in Japan, they are owned by the production companies, as in Toei owns a movie theater line, Toho owns a movie theater line. Pretty much all the big companies own their own movie theaters. Whereas in America, they can't do that due to antitrust laws. So the movie theaters pretty much own themselves or franchise. Like AMC is one of the big ones in America. So this is pretty much an independent movie theater in Japan, which I knew nothing about. And the person who bought out the place was going to turn it into a manga cafe. Which, the way I understand it, is a cafe designed so you can read stock manga like a library. Personally, I think that's a bad idea, as if you're eating something, there's likely going to get stuff in the book, and unless you own it, that's a bad idea. Anyways, the horror possesses the operator of the movies, who really loves old movies, really loves horror movies, and he stuffs his boss into a Romero flick. The boss is a young kid that doesn't know the first thing about zombie movies, so he pretty much gets killed off because he tried stabbing the zombies through the lung. The standard for killing zombies, since Romero, is the damaging of the brain or the removal of the head. Now, the horror's second victim is a nerd who loves horror movies. Oh, two things for this. One, he survives the entire thing. He actually is not killed by the horror. Second, he's having the time of his life. As in seconds of being in the movie, he knows being stuffed into the horror's movie realm, he knows what to do. He stabs the zombie through him, and he's kind of stripped a bit of flesh, but he's not outright, in the first scene, but he's not right out killed because of Raiga's intervention, so he's kind of leading through some of these more exterior ones. When they switch movie elements, they stuff him as a nurse/doctor in the Rage Virus zombie setting. And then when they switch to the Scream themed, I have not seen Scream, so he's one of the high school varsity players that I think I remember from the trailers. I have not seen Scream. And he is having the time of his life, well, despite being scared. And that's the horror's entire theme for this week. It's that the thrill of fear in that, and so you can get all these base emotions. The base emotion is fear, and, well, I don't agree with that. It fits with the logic of horror movies and why people like them, why people can get a thrill off them. Hell, I like some horror movies, even though, well, I consider E.T. a horror movie. I really need to take care of that one of these days. That stupid puppet still creeps me out. But yeah, I understand the logic of this, and it is a very well done, well crafted episode. I highly recommend it, even if you're not a Tokusatsu fan, even if you're not a Japanese series fan. Watch this episode, because it is just fantastic. Yeah, that's pretty much it for me this week. I will see you for the betrayals. Oh, one other thing. We're going to be seeing the Emperor of Darkness soon, and from spoiler information for Toqger, the Emperor's name is Zet. As in, Lord Zed. This is applying to that theory that Kobayashi has been watching the American adaptations, because, Lord Zed. Thing is, Zet is already the name of a character from a parody series. Super Freaking Parody Rangers, by Chris Kerber-Niozzi. It's one of the best Power Rangers parodies out there, and the villain is Lord Zet, which is an adaptation of his character of Zeto from Tome. I hope the name is at least altered a bit from what the preview details have shown, but if it is, Kerber became a Sentai villain. Yeah. Okay, that's it for real. See you next week.